Just as Leonard was about to become one with the pavement, something slammed into Doggo from behind. It was Kaisel. Before Doggo could regain his balance, my glorious king dropped in from the sky and kicked him straight into the dirt. Jinwoo told Leonard to grab Thomas and get out. Now, Doggo dragged himself from the rubble, whispering that he could smell the Shadow Monarch. Jinwoo met his gaze, clocked the killing intent, and stayed calm. But that calm didn't last long. Behind him, Bug Lady pulled up, clearly starving for monarch meat, saying she'd always wondered what one of them tasted like. And that wasn't even the worst part. Creepy Grandpa arrived too. Now Jinwoo was surrounded. The mana in the air grew so dense it felt like the sky itself was holding its breath. Jinwoo summoned his entire shadow army for war. But Creepy Grandpa shut that down instantly, freezing every single one of them with a single breath. He told Jinwoo his soldiers were locked in place and couldn't do a damn thing. Bug Lady chimed in, salty as hell, complaining about how Jinwoo should have left her kids alone. She looked over the Shadow Army, called it pathetic, and said trying to stop them with this level of force was straight up disrespectful. Creepy Grandpa stared at Jinwoo like he was explaining something obvious to an intern. Ashborn might have been the strongest, sure, but that didn't mean the rest of the Monarchs were weak-side characters. That speech lasted right up until Jinwoo shattered the ice like it was tissue paper and stared all of them down without a shred of fear. Creepy Grandpa's smug expression evaporated instantly. The mask dropped. His face twisted like his entire plan just got nuked. Jinwoo didn't waste words. He pointed straight at the frozen fossil and made a promise with zero hesitation. He didn't care what happened next. He was killing at least that one. Creepy Grandpa responded by summoning his frosty Minecraft mobs, ready to throw hands. Bug Lady went back on her necromancer arc, raising dead hunters like this was a low-budget zombie apocalypse. They rushed Jinwoo all at once, but he moved through it all at terrifying speed, slipping past every attack and launching himself straight at Creepy Grandpa. Before the hit could land, Doggo intercepted him mid-air. The two started brawling, and Doggo had the audacity to roast Jinwoo's weapon, asking if he really thought some basic metal stick could hurt a monarch. The answer came instantly. Jinwoo chopped Doggo's hand clean off mid-sentence and told him that if it were normal metal, maybe not. But this wasn't that. Before he could finish the job, Bug Lady dragged Doggo out of the way. While they stalled, Doggo casually reattached his hand like it was a Lego piece. Now Jinwoo was officially surrounded. Minions everywhere. 3 monarchs watching him like dinner. Then the ice cracked. Baru burst out in full demon mode and charged straight at Bug Lady, screaming about how she dared lay a hand on his king. Creepy Grandpa and Doggo froze for real this time. Seeing a commander-class shadow under the control of a human shook them to their core. Bug Lady tried to play it cool, talking about how misbehaving children need discipline. But Baru sliced through her abilities like they didn't even exist. He dropped to one knee before Jinwoo, praising him with absolute loyalty. Even against higher beings, his lord never lost his shine. The minions rushed in next, but Baru and Jinwoo cleared them like they were sweeping trash. Just when things stabilized, Bug Lady landed a sneak attack. She wrecked Baru and sent Jinwoo flying through a building like he was made of paper. He slammed into the ground, barely standing in time to block Creepy Grandpa's ice spam. Grandpa started talking trash, asking how much longer he thought he could last against a double team. Jinwoo was done playing. He ran Creepy Grandpa straight through the heart and told him the one thing that never changes. "You're not walking out of here alive." Creepy Grandpa ripped the weapon out of his own chest and started screaming like someone had stolen his dentures, going full drama mode about how no human should dare talk back to a monarch. Mr. Aura Farmer watched the guy get stabbed clean through the heart, shrugged like, "Guess that doesn't work," and launched another attack anyway. But before the blow could land, Creepy Grandpa pulled a dirty trick. Space twisted for half a second, and suddenly Doggo was behind Jinwoo. The slash came fast. Steel tore across Jinwoo's back, and the moment his blood hit the ground, Baru completely lost it. He was about to erupt when a presence warped in behind him. A buggy weirdo materialized out of nowhere, her aura crawling like insects under the skin. She introduced herself as Querisha, claiming to be the mother of every insect alive. She grabbed Baru gently, too gently, and started talking like some twisted, fake-loving parent. She said she'd still hold him, even if he acted like a disrespectful brat. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was on his knees, getting folded by Doggo, who was serving pain like it was his full-time job. Doggo stepped closer, voice calm, cruel. "It's over." Desperate, Baru screamed at the others, asking what the hell they were doing. He told them to move, to save their king. That's when Greed finally snapped out of his frozen timeout, roaring that he would be the one to deliver the final blow. Doggo looked at him and instantly clocked it. Greed hadn't been normal in his past life. That aura wasn't something you just forgot. For the first time, Creepy Grandpa started to feel uneasy. The ice shattered again. Tusk broke free. Ygritte followed. Iron tore his way out like the prison never existed. The heavy hitters were back. Creepy Grandpa turned to Jinwoo, trying to regain control, saying his wounds were fatal and that playtime was over. Jinwoo just smirked. Then he stood up, fully healed. The overpowered status recovery kicked in like cheat codes, activating mid-fight. Everyone watching, hunters, civilians, analysts, lost their minds as my glorious king tanked everything and kept walking forward. The city was getting erased. Monarchs and shadows were throwing hands like it was a demolition derby. Leonard Neerman stood frozen, watching history unfold. Thomas Andre finally came to and asked what was happening. Leonard answered with the only thing that made sense. This is the end of the world. Beck watched too, wondering if this was even the same Jinwoo he once knew. He'd always known Jinwoo could grow fast, but this was something else entirely. On the battlefield, the shadows started winning. The Monarchs were slipping. Their Regan wasn't keeping up anymore. Quirisha lost her composure as Baru beat her down with pure rage. She tried to finish him, but Jinwoo stepped in, saying something cryptic about a burning pillar and inevitable death. None of it mattered. He was still standing. Elsewhere, Lim Tae-gyu watched from a rooftop, rifle slung, assassins positioned everywhere. He debated whether to intervene, but deep down he knew the truth. If they jumped in, half of them would die instantly. Even Thomas Andre had been folded. What chance did they have? Lim stalled, knowing no one wanted to be the first name on a Monarch's kill list. Then a hand landed on his shoulder. A calm voice told him to sit down and enjoy the show. Lim turned and froze. His soul practically left his body. Back on the battlefield, every hunter stood useless. Front row seats to a gladiator match, they had no chance of surviving. Jinwoo clapped Bug Lady so hard she had to regenerate just to stay mad. She fired off a weak poison attack, and the system immediately flagged lingering venom. Jinwoo stared her down. Poison doesn't work on me, she snapped, charged him screaming, but stopped halfway as gravity betrayed her. She panicked, realizing his authority was overwhelming hers. Jinwoo slammed her into the ground and tore her apart mid-sentence. Her body crumbled into dust as she muttered about death, how heavy it was, how it humbled even monsters. Then she vanished. Monarch of Plagues defeated. Creepy Grandpa watched in disbelief. He asked Doggo how Jinwoo could pull that off without even using the full Shadow Monarch powers. Doggo brushed it off, saying Jinwoo was exhausted. Then he grabbed Baru by the neck and started crushing him, mocking how weak monarchs relied on companions. Jinwoo felt it hit him. This was exactly what Doggo had done to Thomas Andre's shadow. He panicked, tried to unsummon Baru, but the system shut him down cold. You cannot retract the specified subject. Fury took over. Jinwoo lunged and bodied Doggo, saving Baru at the last possible second. He managed to recall him before he vanished completely, but the damage was done. Creepy Grandpa transformed fully, becoming an ice demon incarnate. He smiled and told Jinwoo that the strings holding his puppets together had just been cut. He planned to bind the shadows under his control, forcing them into an endless loop of healing and resurrection, slowly bleeding every last drop of my glorious king's mana dry. With that plan locked in, he unleashed a brutal assault, catching Drippy Woo by the arm and smashing him into the ground like a discarded toy, fully convinced the fight was finished. It wasn't. Drippy Woo forced himself back up and charged again, only to get cleanly dodged and hit so hard he was launched across the battlefield. He managed to land on his feet, but the damage was stacking fast. That's when Creepy Grandpa stepped in. He stared at Jinwoo for a long moment, analyzing him like a broken build, before casually pointing out that his stealth skill was probably eating through his mana. Then, without wasting another second, he jumped in himself, aiming to end things quickly. Blow after blow was exchanged. Jinwoo was reading every movement, every shift in posture, but even then, he couldn't help wishing he was just a bit faster. Creepy Grandpa unleashed another wave of ice magic, but by the time it landed, my glorious king was already behind him, blade raised and ready. That's when he noticed the smile. A bad feeling hit instantly. Everyone watching stood frozen, like they were stuck in a horror movie with no pause button. Even Leonard Norman looked like he was about to uninstall life when Doggo, the beast boss himself, Monarch of Fangs, appeared behind Mr. Aura Farmer and drove his claws straight through his chest. Raken, completely unprompted, opened his mouth and said, "So this is what happens when your speed stat fails." Mr. Aura Farmer dropped his weapons like his connection just died and stared down at the claws piercing his chest. His mind scrambled, running calculations. His level was higher, so he should be able to tank this. He was wrong. Creepy Grandpa stepped in, picked up one of Mr. Aura Farmer's daggers, and stabbed it straight back into him, like he was returning borrowed property. Smirking, he asked my glorious king if he planned to pull another clutch heel like before, but he already knew the answer. He just wanted to feel superior. Leaning in close, Creepy Grandpa whispered that Jinwoo wouldn't live long enough to witness the moment their armies descended upon this world. When that day came, there would be mountains of corpses. Then he went full villain monologue mode, talking about rivers of blood and piles of dead humans, like he was addressing a live stream chat. But soon his tone shifted. He said he had something special planned for this country. He would freeze everyone, slowly, one by one, trap them in endless pain, and turn the entire place into a living hell. And just to make it sweeter, he wanted Mr. Aura Farmer to die angry. As the ice crept over him, my glorious king focused on one thing. He just needed a few more seconds. But his HP hit 0. A system panel appeared, delivering the worst possible news. Death confirmed. Then another notification popped up and saved the entire season. The black heart he'd received wasn't just decoration. A hidden passive skill activated. Light exploded across the screen, full anime climax mode. And the next thing he knew, my glorious king sat upright in a hospital bed like nothing ever happened. He looked around in panic, trying to understand how he wasn't 6 feet under after being stabbed straight through the heart. For a brief moment, he wondered if everything had been a dream. The hospital looked familiar. He checked his chest. He knew he'd been pierced. That's when Jinchul walked in with another man, asking if he was awake. Mr. Aura Farmer's brain immediately started malfunctioning. Where were the Monarchs? Why was he alive? What happened to all the supernatural chaos? He called Jinchul chairman and demanded answers. Jinchul responded with 3 reality-shattering plot twists. First, he wasn't the chairman. Second, he wanted to ask about some moving statues. Third, how the hell did Mr. Aura Farmer know his name? Mr. Aura Farmer just sat there, mentally buffering. Now that my glorious king was awake, Jinchul explained what had happened. After receiving the report, they dispatched the White Tiger Guild. But when they arrived, the dungeon was already cleaned out like someone skipped to the end. That wasn't what Jinwoo meant. Something felt wrong, and then it hit him. He hadn't just survived, and it didn't take long for my glorious king to realize the truth. He had gone back in time. Seeing him lost in thought, Jinchul asked if he was okay. Jinwoo said he needed a minute. He opened the system. Everything was still there. Same stats, same equipment. Even Kamisha's wrath was still sitting comfortably in his inventory. Then someone walked in and asked why he was out of bed. It was Gina. She was already on demon time, convinced he'd smashed his head in the dungeon. After calming down, she stared at him for a long moment, then bluntly asked who he was. Jinwoo froze. Then it clicked. She couldn't recognize him because he had evolved too hard. Last time, this transformation happened gradually. This time, he woke up already in his final form. So her reaction made sense. Jinna kept roasting him, talking about how he used to be a loser crybaby. But now, he didn't look like her brother anymore. He told her to chill out and stop overthinking it, saying he didn't have time right now. There was something important he needed to handle first. That meant a trip to the Hunters Association. She asked why, and Jinwoo dropped a straight-up nuke. He told her he was quitting the hunter life. Told her to go back to school. Then, just to really mess with her head, he casually called out Han Seong-yi by name. As he headed for the door, he stopped and turned back, telling her to never throw her future away chasing monsters. Her face froze in shock. She had no idea how this guy even knew who she was. Jinwoo just pulled his hood up like a final boss and started thinking ahead. No shadows, no soldiers, no army. That meant one thing. It was time to rebuild from scratch. He made his way to the association to get his rank evaluated again. The moment the test started, the staff began panicking like their equipment was about to explode. They whispered among themselves, realizing this was the first S-rank awakening they'd seen in 2 years. Even the scanner itself gave up, unable to properly measure his power. Just like last time, the staff nervously suggested running the test again using a different machine. Jinwoo shut that down immediately and said he wanted to see the chairman first. They offered to escort him. He declined. He already knew the way. As he walked off, the staff whispered to each other, confused about how some random guy knew exactly where the chairman's office was. Inside the elevator, another man stepped in beside him. This guy was internally writing fan fiction, desperately crafting another excuse to feed the association. If Chief Inspector Wu caught him, he knew he was finished. Then my glorious king casually spoke. He mentioned the stealth skill the man had never officially reported. The air froze. The man reached for his weapon and demanded to know how he knew that. Jinwoo didn't even blink. He told him that in the future, someone would come begging him for revenge. And while he could do whatever he wanted to criminals, if he ever laid a hand on innocent hunters, he would die, and the one who would kill him was standing right in front of him. Kang Tae-sik nearly short-circuited. When Jinwoo finished, Tae-sik demanded to know who he was. But Drippy Woo had already walked away, like he didn't have time for NPC dialogue. Tae-sik was left standing there, staring at the empty elevator, looking like he'd just been haunted by an actual ghost. Jinwoo then stepped into the chairman's office and locked eyes with him. The chairman visibly stiffened, emotion hitting him all at once. It felt like he was seeing someone he hadn't seen in years. Noticing the post-evaluation paperwork, the chairman assumed Jinwoo already understood the process and tried to check in on him. Jinwoo brushed it off, saying it was nothing. That's when a system panel appeared, asking if he wanted to restart the world. He ignored it completely and went straight into business. He asked Gun-hee to change the association's rules so that summoned creatures could be counted as full raid members. In exchange, he promised to solo Jeju Island and wipe out the ant infestation entirely. Gun-hee snapped, telling him to stop talking nonsense. That island was a graveyard. Countless raids had failed there. But then he really looked at Jinwoo. The mana pouring off him was unreal. Jinwoo calmly said this wasn't a group mission. It was a one-man job, and he was the man for it. The chairman knew immediately. This wasn't just a prodigy. This was power beyond national level. As Gun-hee sat there stunned, memories flooded his mind. Jinwoo saving Ju-hee, surviving Red Gates, slaughtering orcs, turning bosses into shadows, curing his mother, and finally dominating Jeju Island, crushing Baru, and claiming the entire ant army. All the while, the same system panel kept appearing, asking if he wanted to restart the world. Suddenly, Jinwoo snapped. He yelled for it to stop. He said he knew it was fake and demanded the truth. The illusion shattered. He found himself standing in an endless sea of system messages, all asking the same question. Restart the world? He shouted for whoever was behind it, and a figure stepped forward. Jinwoo recognized him instantly. He asked if he was the real one. It was the Shadow Monarch himself. The king offered him paradise, an eternal dream where he could live forever if he wanted. Jinwoo rejected it immediately. He refused to be trapped inside someone else's fantasy. That's when the king revealed the truth. This world wasn't something he created. It was born from Jinwoo's own wish to undo his failures, amplified by his power. This place was death itself. A quiet, peaceful hell. The king said he had watched Jinwoo suffer longer than anyone. He was proof of that suffering, the final reward and the last horror. He was rest, and he was terror. Within this world, Jinwoo could do anything. Steal power, command servants, even take the king's shadows as his own. Here, he was a god, but only here. Jinwoo asked if that meant they shared the same power. The king smiled. He said he had waited an eternity for this moment, because Jinwoo was the Shadow Monarch, the ruler of darkness. When Jinwoo asked why it had to be him, the king told him he would show him everything, their beginning, their end, and Jinwoo's true start. The story snaps back to the city, where Mr. Aura Farmer is still trapped inside his deluxe ice cube nightmare. Doggo takes one look at him and straight up tells creepy grandpa that he's finished. Across the street, Thomas Andre mutters that my glorious king straight up vanished like he rage quit the server. Leonard quietly nods while Hunter Beck completely loses it, shouting that this is impossible. Without Jinwoo, there's nobody left who can stand up to monsters on this level. Up on a rooftop, Lim is having a full-blown existential meltdown, wondering if trusting that earlier intel was the worst decision of his life. For a moment, he considers just carpet-bombing everything into dust. Then he snaps out of it and orders the hunters to lock and load. Their weapons line up, all aimed at some crusty, dried-out ice monster that looks like it forgot winter skincare existed. But just as they're about to fire, Mr. Aura Farmer starts glowing, like he just plugged himself into an entire power grid. Creepy Grandpa sees it and instantly panics. Inside the ice, they spot it. My glorious king's dark heart, burning brighter by the second, turning into a miniature inferno. Creepy Grandpa and Doggo exchange one look and immediately sprint forward, screaming that they have to stop the real king from waking up now that the fake one already got deleted. But before they can reach him, Raken suddenly gets launched face first by some unknown force and crashes straight into Creepy Grandpa. Both of them go flying into a wall like disposable NPCs. The mystery man steps forward, standing protectively in front of Mr. Aura Farmer, and declares that no one is allowed to touch his child. And then, lore drop. Long ago, an absolute being split existence into light and darkness like it was nothing, forming two factions. The light side became emissaries. The dark side became sovereigns. One was meant to preserve the world, the other to erase it. Naturally, those two sides spent eternity killing each other, dying, reviving, and repeating the cycle like an endless arena mode. Eventually, one emissary, the brilliant light, started questioning everything. He asked the Absolute why it just stood there, watching everyone suffer without lifting a finger. The emissaries begged for help. The Absolute did nothing. That's when they realized the truth. The war was never meant to end. It was entertainment, a never-ending slaughter for the Absolute's amusement. So they snapped. A full rebellion erupted. The Monarch points to this moment and tells Mr. Aura Farmer that he was the only one who stood against that rebellion. But his army was crushed when the entire faction turned on him. Just when he thought it was over, he awakened in darkness and discovered the Absolute had hidden an immense power inside him. A secret cheat code. That was the moment the True Shadow Monarch was born. Using that power, he resurrected his fallen soldiers and marched back into the war. But by the time he arrived, it was already over. Brilliant Light had slain the Absolute and declared the emissaries the new rulers. Armed with weapons infused with the Absolute's remaining power, they hunted down monarchs relentlessly. Ligia, the giant monarch, was defeated and imprisoned, completely shattering the balance between rulers and monarchs. The monarch tells Jinwoo that extinction was inevitable. Cornered and desperate, the monarchs accepted his offer to unite. From that moment on, he fought not as an emissary or fragment of light, but as the Shadow Monarch alone. He rebuilt his army by collecting the dead from battlefields. When he allied with the Destruction Army led by the Berserk Dragon King, fear spread everywhere. Both rulers and monarchs began trembling. Two monarchs couldn't handle his overwhelming power and betrayed him. That betrayal nearly erased his Shadow Army entirely. The Beast Monarch abandoned his forces and fled, while the Monarch of White Flames was personally erased by Shadow Daddy. Then the rulers descended from the sky. Surrounding the Shadow Monarch, they knelt and begged for forgiveness. They claimed the war had become meaningless. They admitted they could have destroyed him, but chose peace instead, as a final act of respect for the one who once fought beside them. But my glorious king wasn't having it. He asked if they'd forgotten how they stabbed their own liege while calling him master. That silence cut deeper than any blade. One ruler tried to reason with him, claiming they only wanted the war to end, so he told them to prove it. If they wanted peace, they should kill him right then and declare victory. Every ruler lowered their head. The Shadow Monarch was exhausted. With no clear path forward, he withdrew into the shadows to recover and plan. Since Baran was already sealed within him, he decided that once he regained strength, the Beast Monarch would be next. But while he was gone, the remaining monarchs got hunted down one by the rulers. By the time he returned, only a handful were left, hiding inside some cracked-out dimensional rift. The Dragon King stepped in immediately, shutting down any chance of infighting. He knew this wasn't the time for ego clashes. They needed to rebuild, so he welcomed the Shadow Monarch back, and together they began searching for a new world where everything could start over. The Shadow Monarch continued the story, and that's when Rulers Wu finally asked the question that had been sitting in Jinwoo's chest. "Are you talking about Earth?" The Shadow Monarch answered yes, and showed him visions of ruined cities that looked way too familiar. Jinwoo stared at the destruction and immediately felt it. This looked exactly like the Demon Castle all over again. He asked if this was the future. The Shadow Monarch shut that down instantly. "No, this is the past." Jinwoo blinked, asked what the hell that was supposed to mean. So the Shadow Monarch explained. In the past, the rulers arrived too late. The monarchs had already wiped the world clean. Furious that the Chaos Army they failed to destroy had resurfaced and annihilated yet another planet, the rulers panicked. To undo their screw-up, they used a forbidden relic left behind by the Absolute Being, the Cup of Reincarnation. They rewound time by 10 years, dumping everything into that single reset. But Earth was fragile, way too weak to survive a full-scale god-tier war between rulers and monarchs. No matter who won, the planet would still be erased. So the rulers entered full desperation mode. If they couldn't save everyone, they at least wanted someone to survive. That's when Jinwoo asked the obvious question. Is that why hunters exist? The Shadow Monarch confirmed it. Humans were given power, so at least some of them could survive in a world crawling with monsters wearing nuke-level stats. Then Rulers Wu had another realization. The Demon King from the tower wasn't real. He was just leftover memories from the Shadow Monarch. And this world? It might have already been erased multiple times. The Shadow Monarch confirmed that too. Time couldn't be reversed by higher beings. But they could sense when it had been tampered with. And now, the cup was broken. Jinwoo was shaken. That kind of power couldn't just disappear. The Shadow Monarch replied calmly, even the Absolute was killed by his own creations. No power lasts forever. Rulers Wu asked how anyone could even kill the Absolute. The answer was simple. Same way humans died of machines they created, built them, then got wiped by them. With that same logic, the monarchs copied the rulers' strategy. Just like rulers empowered humans to fight monsters, the monarchs made their move. They would invade Earth early by hijacking human bodies, turn the entire planet into one massive ambush. But now that magic was flooding the world, they needed strong vessels, and that was the problem. The Shadow Monarch and the Monarch of Destruction were too powerful. No human body could handle that load. That's when one of the smartest mages in existence approached the Shadow Monarch with a deal. He'd find the perfect vessel. In exchange, he wanted an immortal body. That madman was the architect. But since no living thing could hold death without breaking apart, the architect created a system, something to slowly shape a human into a vessel capable of holding death itself. He needed someone who could sense magic instinctively, smash through buildings without hesitation, endure fatal injuries on repeat, and somehow stay mentally intact, a god in gym clothes. And he found one, a random nobody who didn't just survive the system, but broke it, forced it to adapt, and made it beg for updates. It was you, the Shadow Monarch said, a guy who used to be a walking hospital bill, always one hit away from death, yet somehow still standing. I watched you get back up again and again, breaking rules, spitting in fate's face. So I chose you, not because of destiny, not prophecy, but because I enjoyed watching you destroy everything. I am your proof, your receipt, your trophy. Jinwoo stared him down and asked the hard question. So even after all that, I still wasn't enough to hold all that death? The Shadow Monarch admitted the truth. The system was designed like a game to keep him engaged. Dopamine hits, levels, rewards, all to slowly reshape his body while keeping him distracted. All that shadow energy molding him for this moment, and still, it wasn't enough. Then Jinwoo asked the question that cut deepest. Why did you betray the architect? The Shadow Monarch sighed. The rulers begged forgiveness. The monarchs stabbed each other in the back. He chose a side, not out of loyalty, but because he caught feelings. Time with Jinwoo mattered. He didn't want to let go, so he didn't. They merged, completely, body, soul, everything. Now he gave Jinwoo the choice. Stay here forever in this silent world of death, or return to reality and face what's waiting. My glorious king didn't hesitate. He asked one last thing, why the Shadow Monarch left to another world if he had already given up on the war. The answer hit like a gut punch, because there was nowhere left for him, no home, no purpose, just empty space and a fading will to exist. Jinwoo nods once. Then I'll choose the same. This isn't my place. Not yet. The Shadow Monarch hears him and smiles, quiet, proud, like an emo dad watching his kid finally get it. He turns and starts walking away. Jinwoo asks if this is goodbye. The Shadow Monarch answers calmly. He will return to rest. Jinwoo, as the new Shadow Monarch, will live an imperishable life. Then he drops the truth, blunt and cold. The chances of them ever meeting again are basically zero. His death finalized his power. He's about to explain more, like a tutorial pop-up, but Jinwoo cuts him off with a quiet, steady, "I know." The Shadow Monarch grins. Of course he knows. They're the same person. Outside that death realm, creepy Grandpa and Doggo arrive just in time to watch my glorious king return from the void like he just stepped out for groceries. They immediately corner one of the shining light fragments and start interrogating him. A disaster is waking up inside that body you're guarding. Are you seriously trying to bring world-ending chaos just to help the Shadow Monarch? What is wrong with you? Doggo snaps at creepy Grandpa. They're out of time, and lunges first. But Il Huan already saw it coming and moves to intercept. The clash is immediate. All three crash into battle. Creepy Grandpa stabs first with his oversized fork, but misses clean. Doggo dives from above. Claws ready, but still lands nothing. Then Il Huan slips behind Creepy Grandpa and drives his blade straight into his shoulder, like it's personal. Creepy Grandpa tries to sneak around and lock Il Huan in place, but gets wrecked again. Il Huan kicks him straight into a building. Doggo lunges for the kill, jaws wide. Instead, he ends up with a hole punched clean through his skull. Before he can even scream again, Il Huan caves his ribs in and sends him flying. Doggo crashes, yanks the weapon out of his head, and roars, but his body won't respond right. Then he turns and sees Ruler's Wu. That's when fear hits. The mana is screaming. This isn't the weak version from before. This is the real Monarch. Creepy Grandpa recovers and snarls that cheap tricks won't work anymore. He orders Doggo to attack again. Doggo steps back. He says he's done. Creepy Grandpa stares at him like his brain just froze solid. After everything, he's quitting? Doggo tells him to listen to the mana. It's crying. The real Shadow Monarch is coming. He opens a portal and leaves. Creepy Grandpa shouts about broken promises, but Doggo shuts him down. That deal died with the human shell. Whatever's coming now, I want no part of it. Creepy Grandpa calls him a coward. Doggo shrugs. He wouldn't understand. He's never faced the real one. Then Doggo disappears. Left alone, Creepy Grandpa snarls. Fine. Then die cold. He slams his trident into the ground and summons a blizzard straight out of hell. Lim sees the weather flip into apocalypse mode and orders every hunter to retreat immediately. Ice spears rain from the sky. Creepy Grandpa begins charging his final attack. And now, only a shining fragment and one fully awakened Shadow Monarch stand in his way. Creepy Grandpa screams, rants, monologues like the drama king he is. He talks about humans knowing their place while forming a frozen nuke in the sky. He yells about voids and darkness like it matters. Il Huan just stands there, wide-eyed, probably regretting every life decision he ever made. Before he can move, an ice spear drops from the sky and rips his arm clean off. Then the real twist hits. A shadow launches upward and crushes the massive ice sphere before it can land. Baru returns, and this time, he's different. On the battlefield, standing over the fragment like a dark god, shielding him effortlessly. He looks at Creepy Grandpa and tells him to stop pretending he's royalty when his power is that pathetic. Creepy Grandpa freezes. The moment he realizes Ruler's Wu broke the spell, and every Commander-class Shadow Soldier is back on their feet, his mind short-circuits. Then comes the real chills. Mr. Aura Farmer steps forward, glowing with menace, and asks if the Beast Monarch already ran away. Creepy Grandpa looks like he's about to evaporate. Ruler's Wu follows up with one line. Who gave you permission to leave? At that point, the old man knows. He's done. A dome of darkness begins expanding around my glorious king. It doesn't stop. It swallows blocks, districts, a massive portion of the city. It keeps growing until it's visible from space. Half the earth sinks into shadow. And at the center of it all, Ruler's Wu whispers, "Found you." Creepy Grandpa convinces himself this is his chance. He gathers everything he has, throws his trident, and prays. Ruler's Wu catches it with one hand, crushes it into scrap. Creepy Grandpa just stands there, hollow. But Ruler's Wu doesn't even attack. "Stay there," he says. "I'll deal with you after I clean up the beast." Deep in a forest, Doggo stumbles out of a portal, panicked. Of course he is. He's running from death. He thought he had time, thought arguing with a Frost Monarch was worth it. He was wrong. Now he plans to hide until the Dragon King arrives, but the instant he senses my glorious king behind him, he drops to the ground. That isn't fear. That's survival instinct. He begs, swears loyalty, plays the obedient dog again, promises to help fight the Dragon King if spared. For a moment, Ruler's Wu listens. Doggo thinks he got away with it, thinks Jinwoo is soft, already planning betrayal, telling himself he just needs time. But Ruler's Wu smiles. "Sure," he says, "but we need to settle something. I've got 5 scars from your claws, survived 5 attacks, then I forgive you." Doggo's soul leaves his body. He transforms fully, roars like it matters, and charges, swearing he'll drag Ruler's Wu down with him. Ruler's Wu blinks. A flash. Doggo doesn't even realize what happened until blood sprays, and one arm is gone. Ruler's Wu looks him dead in the eyes. 4 more. Back in Korea, Baru continues patching up the hunters. while death finishes its errands. Creepy Grandpa watched from afar, completely indifferent to the humans scrambling below. They were insects to him. But the moment Igris stepped forward, his expression changed. That was when he knew the night of death had arrived. One of the Shadow Army's 2 wings, a walking catastrophe. Now that the shadows had fully regained their power, Creepy Grandpa immediately understood the problem. As long as Jinwoo had mana, those soldiers would keep coming back, over and over. No exhaustion, no fear. And Creepy Grandpa was already running on fumes after pulling off that flashy transformation earlier. He dropped down to the battlefield and tried to posture, forcing confidence into his voice as he warned Igris not to get any ideas. "Do you really think you can stop me?" Igris didn't answer. Instead, he planted his sword into the ground. And from the shadows behind him, the real nightmare emerged. Jinwoo stepped out like he'd been waiting for someone brave or stupid enough to challenge him. He casually tossed 2 blood-soaked fangs onto the ground. Trash. That was all that remained of Doggo. Creepy Grandpa froze. It looked like his soul had been slapped clean out of his body. The Beast Monarch had been erased in minutes. Jinwoo didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The Plague Monarch is gone. The Beast Monarch is gone. And now, it's your turn. Creepy Grandpa tried to activate his ice, forcing mana through a body that was already failing him. But before he could even move, 2 daggers flashed. One pierced his chest. The other tore through his shoulder. He tried to retaliate, burning the last scraps of mana he had left. It was ugly, desperate, pathetic. Drippywoo grabbed him by the mouth and split him open like it was nothing. He casually mentioned that Doggo died on the 4th strike, then asked how long Creepy Grandpa thought he would last. The answer? Not long. Creepy Grandpa screamed as his body shattered into ice and dust, scattered by the wind. Just like that, every monarch who had stepped onto this battlefield was erased.